Numbers don't lie. That's what I kept telling myself as I stared at my laptop screen, watching our joint account balance mock me with its glaring discrepancy. $50,000. Gone. Just like that, without a trace or explanation. I'm Layla, and until this moment, I thought I knew everything about my husband, Ethan. 12 years of marriage had taught me his habits, his tells, the way his left eye twitches when he's nervous. But nothing had prepared me for this. Hey, everything okay? Marcus poked his head into my office, his familiar concerned expression making me quickly minimize the banking window. You missed the morning briefing. Did I? My voice cracked. I cleared my throat, trying to maintain composure. Sorry, I got caught up in some calculations. Marcus stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Layla, you've been staring at your screen for the past hour. I can see your reflection in the window. I forced a smile, but my hands were shaking as I reached for my coffee mug. It's nothing, just some personal stuff. Personal stuff doesn't usually make you miss presenting the quarterly projections to the board. He leaned against my desk, his presence both comforting and intrusive. Want to talk about it? The mug trembled in my grip. Ethan's been different lately, distant, and now I'm looking at our accounts and I stopped myself, shame burning my cheeks. I shouldn't be discussing this at work. Different how? Late nights, mysterious phone calls. Last week he claimed he was visiting his sister in Phoenix, but when I called her, I set the mug down before I could spill it. She hadn't seen him in months. Marcus's expression darkened. Have you confronted him? He's got an explanation for everything. Always does. I pulled up the banking window again, pointing to the transaction history. But numbers don't lie, right? $50,000, transferred to an account I've never seen before. Jesus, Marcus whispered, leaning closer to examine the screen. When did this happen? 3 days ago, while I was at that conference in Boston. My phone buzzed on the desk, Ethan's face lighting up the screen. I let it ring. You should answer it, Marcus suggested, but I could hear the hesitation in his voice. I shook my head. Not until I figure out what I'm dealing with. I need to be smart about this. The phone stopped buzzing, only to start again immediately. This time, a text message appeared. Need to talk. Important. Please call me back. E. Whatever you decide to do, Marcus straightened up, heading for the door. Just remember you've got people in your corner. After he left, I sat there staring at Ethan's message, my mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. The pharmaceutical company where I worked had strict policies about personal matters affecting professional performance. I couldn't let this situation spiral out of control. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan. Found us an amazing investment opportunity. We'll explain everything tonight. Love you. Investment opportunity. The words hit me like a slap. I remembered the last time he'd used that phrase. 3 years ago when he convinced his parents to refinance their house for a sure thing that ended up costing them their retirement savings. He'd sworn it wasn't his fault, that he'd been misled too. I'd believed him then. I opened my drawer and pulled out the business card Dr. Simmons had given me last month during Ethan's physical. Call me if you need to talk, she'd said, with an odd emphasis I hadn't understood at the time. Maybe she'd seen something I'd missed. The office suddenly felt too small, too confining. I gathered my things, told my assistant I was taking a personal day, and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Marcus watching me from his office, his expression unreadable. I had no idea then that this was just the beginning, that the missing money would be the least of my concerns. But something inside me had shifted, like a switch being flipped. The trust I'd built my marriage on was crumbling, and in its place, something darker was taking root. The drive to Dr. Simmons's office felt like navigating through quicksand. Every red light stretched into eternity, every turn bringing me closer to answers I wasn't sure I wanted. The business card sat heavy in my pocket, its edges worn from my constant fidgeting. Dr. Simmons's receptionist recognized me immediately. Mrs. Harrison, Doctors between patients. She said to send you right in when you arrived. The examination room smelled of antiseptic and secrets. Dr. Simmons stood by her desk, already waiting. I wondered when you'd call, she said, gesturing to a chair. How much do you know? About what? My voice sounded hollow, even to me. She pulled out a file, hesitating before opening it. During Ethan's last visit, I noticed some inconsistencies in his medical history. Previous conditions that didn't match his records. What kind of inconsistencies? The kind that make me wonder if the Ethan Harrison in my office was the same Ethan Harrison from his previous medical records. She paused, studying my face. Have you ever verified his background? My phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. Where are you? We need to talk about the investment. Time sensitive. Dr. Simmons noticed my hands shaking. Layla, there's something else. The prescription he requested last month. The office door opened. A nurse poked her head in. Doctor, your next patient is here. Give me 5 minutes, Dr. Simmons replied, then turned back to me. Listen carefully. Don't confront him yet. Get copies of all your financial documents first. And Layla, check the name Richard Thorne. Back at work, I couldn't focus. Marcus stopped by twice, but I barely registered his concerned looks. My computer screen blurred as I typed Richard Thorne into various search engines. Nothing significant appeared until I added fraud to the search. A newspaper article from 6 years ago showed a grainy photo of a man being led away by police. The image quality was poor, but something about the slope of his shoulders, the way he held his head. My office phone rang, startling me. Layla speaking. Hey, it's Sophie. Your sister's been trying to reach you. Something about Ethan showing up at her place. My blood ran cold. What? Lily said he was asking weird questions about your family's assets, claiming he needed the information for some kind of surprise for you. She felt uncomfortable. When was this? Yesterday afternoon. She tried calling you, but... I hung up, already dialing Lily's number. It went straight to voicemail. A knock at my door made me jump. Marcus entered, closing the door behind him. Board meeting in 10 minutes, but first, you need to see this. He placed a document on my desk, a copy of an email chain. This came through the company's compliance department. Someone's been accessing our confidential research data using your login credentials. That's impossible. The access points trace back to your home IP address. Late night hours when you're usually asleep. The pieces started falling into place. Ethan's late nights at home, his sudden interest in my work computer, the missing money. My stomach churned. I've delayed reporting this, Marcus continued, his voice low. But if there's something going on, I need to get home. I stood up, gathering my things. Tell them I'm sick. Layla, wait. Marcus caught my arm. Let me help. Whatever's happening. You can't. I pulled away, but his grip tightened slightly. At least let me drive you. You're shaking. In the parking lot, my car wouldn't start. The engine made a sickening grinding noise before falling silent. Marcus insisted on checking under the hood and found several cables deliberately disconnected. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, coming home early. Big news about our future. Everything's falling into place. I showed Marcus the message. His jaw tightened. You're not going back there alone. I have to. If he suspects I know anything. I trailed off, remembering Dr. Simmons's warning. Then we need a plan. Marcus pulled out his phone. I know someone in corporate security. Give me an hour. As we sat in his car, plotting my next move, I caught my reflection in the side mirror. The woman staring back at me looked different somehow. Harder, more determined. The trust I'd lost wasn't just about money anymore. It was about survival. The garage door was open when Marcus dropped me off. My car, the one that wouldn't start earlier, sat in the driveway, pristine and seemingly untouched. Ethan leaned against it, phone in hand, wearing that disarming smile that used to make my heart skip. There you are, he called out. You wouldn't believe the day I've had. The investment's locked in. We're looking at triple returns within 6 months. I felt Marcus's car idling behind me, his presence a silent guardian. The car's working now. Had Tom take a look at it. Simple fix. Ethan gestured toward our neighbor's house. You worry too much, honey. Tom appeared in his driveway, giving me an awkward wave. Something in his expression made me uneasy. Weird coincidence, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Those cables must have come loose on their own. Marcus's car finally pulled away. The sound felt like abandonment. Inside, Ethan moved with unusual energy, pulling papers from his briefcase. Look at these projections. The returns are guaranteed. We just need to move quickly. Maybe liquidate some of your pharmaceutical stocks. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Call me now, emergency. I need to use the bathroom, I said, already moving toward the stairs. Ethan's hand caught my wrist. This can't wait, Layla. The opportunity expires tonight. I pulled away, forcing a smile. 5 minutes. In the bathroom, I called Lily. She answered on the first ring. He knows, she whispered. About Dr. Simmons, about everything. He was here again, asking about your trust fund. When I wouldn't tell him, Her voice cracked. The things he said about you, about our family. Are you safe? Sophie's picking me up, but Layla, there's more. I found something when he was here, a phone. Not his regular one. There were messages about... The line went dead. My hand shook as I tried calling back. Nothing. Downstairs, Ethan's voice carried up the stairs. He was on the phone. Yes, everything's proceeding as planned. She suspects nothing. No, that won't be a problem much longer. I crept closer to the stairs, straining to hear. The sister's becoming an issue. Yes, I understand. It'll be handled. No, Richard Thorne doesn't exist anymore. I made sure of that. My foot hit a creaky floorboard. The conversation stopped abruptly. Layla? Ethan called out. You've been up there a while. Everything okay? I flushed the toilet, buying time. When I came downstairs, he had a glass of wine waiting. Your favorite, he said, holding it out. I remembered Dr. Simmons's words about his prescription requests. Actually, I'm not feeling well. Maybe we should discuss this tomorrow. His smile tightened. The opportunity expires tonight, remember. Just take a sip, relax, and let me handle everything. The doorbell rang. Through the glass panels, I saw Marcus. What's he doing here? Ethan's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Probably about the board meeting I missed. I moved toward the door, but Ethan blocked my path. You've been spending a lot of time with your manager lately. It's work-related, like those late-night emails from the company server. His mask slipped for a moment, revealing something cold beneath. You should be more careful with your passwords, honey. The doorbell rang again. 3 sharp, urgent rings. Don't answer it. Ethan's command was soft but absolute. My phone buzzed again, a text from Sophie. Lily's safe, police involved, get out now. Move, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Or what? He stepped closer, his familiar cologne now suffocating. You'll tell them about Richard Thorne? About the missing money? Who do you think they'll believe? The loving husband worried about his unstable wife, or the woman making wild accusations? The wine glass in his hand trembled slightly. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't sure how much I knew. The front door crashed open. Marcus stood there with 2 police officers, Tom right behind them, clutching what looked like security camera footage. I'm sorry, Tom said, looking at Ethan. I couldn't do it anymore. Not after what you asked me to do to her car. The wine glass shattered on the floor, dark red spreading like blood across our pristine white tiles. In that moment, watching Ethan's carefully constructed world begin to crumble, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about justice. The police interview room felt smaller with each passing hour. Detective Chen pushed another cup of coffee across the table while I replayed the security footage Tom had provided. On the screen, Ethan methodically disconnected my car's cables. His movements precise, practiced, not the clumsy work of an amateur. "Mrs. Harrison," Detective Chen said, "we found something interesting in your neighbor's garage. Want to tell me about these?" She slid photographs across the table. Surveillance equipment, far more sophisticated than anything Tom could afford. Next to them, printouts of my daily schedule, annotated in Ethan's familiar handwriting. "I've never seen these." "Your neighbor claims Ethan paid him to install them 3 months ago, right around the time your company started clinical trials on the new cancer drug." My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. The timing wasn't a coincidence. "There's more." She produced a laptop. "Your sister's phone was recovered. The contents are concerning." The video played. Ethan in Lily's living room, his charm turned predatory. "Your sister's always been the smart one, hasn't she? Figuring things out too quickly. But accidents happen, Lily, especially to people who ask too many questions." My hands clenched until my nails cut into my palms. "I want to press charges. That's the thing." Detective Chen closed the laptop. "We can't find him. His fingerprints match 3 different identities in our database. Richard Thorne is just one of them." A knock interrupted us. Marcus stood in the doorway, looking exhausted. "They found something at the office." In the elevator up to our floor, Marcus kept glancing at me. "You should prepare yourself," he said finally. My office door hung open. Inside, forensics teams photographed my decimated workspace. My computer was gutted, hard drive missing, but worse were the walls, covered in photographs. Me sleeping, shopping, meeting Dr. Simmons, having lunch with Marcus. "He's been watching me for months," I whispered. "Not just you." Marcus pointed to a stack of papers on my desk. These were hidden in his cloud storage. "He's been selling company research to competitors, using your login credentials." The room spun. "The clinical trials. Compromised. The board's meeting now to discuss damage control." My phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text contained only an image. "Lily's house. Current timestamp. Lights on inside." "He's there," I said, showing Marcus. "He's at my sister's house right now." "Police are on their way," Detective Chen called from the doorway. "Don't." But I was already running, Marcus close behind. In the parking garage, he grabbed my arm. "You can't go alone. He's my husband. My responsibility." "Was your husband," Marcus corrected. "And he's not working alone. Think about the resources needed for this level of surveillance. Someone's backing him." Another text arrived. A video of Lily entering her house, unaware she was being filmed. Below it, words that made my blood freeze. "Should have taken the wine, honey." Marcus's keys jangled between us. "I'm driving." The 15-minute drive to Lily's house felt endless. Marcus broke every speed limit while I tried calling her. No answer. "There's something you should know," Marcus said, turning onto her street. "The board meeting today, it wasn't just about the trials. Someone's been accessing restricted files about our pharmaceutical patents. Files only accessible from your home network." Understanding hit like a physical blow. The investment opportunity he kept pushing was never about money. It was about access. We turned the corner to Lily's house. Every light blazed, but her car was missing. In the driveway stood Sophie, frantically waving us down. "She's not here," Sophie called out as we approached, "but he left this." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a single photograph, Ethan and me on our wedding day. On the back, in his handwriting, "You really should learn to trust your husband, Layla. Now everyone pays the price." My phone buzzed one final time. A video. Lily tied to a chair, terror in her eyes. Behind her, Ethan's voice. "Ready to discuss those patents now, honey?" The screen went black, leaving only my reflection, a woman I barely recognized anymore. The time for playing victim was over. Ethan wanted to see how far I'd go to protect what's mine. He was about to find out. "Call Detective Chen," I told Marcus, already heading back to the car. "Tell her to meet us at the office. I know where he's taking her." The abandoned research facility loomed before us, its darkened windows reflecting the last rays of sunset. Marcus killed the engine, but I was already moving, Dr. Simmons's voicemail replaying in my head. Layla, I found his original medical records. The man you married, he's done this before. 3 times. The wives all disappeared. Security cameras tracked our approach. Good, let him see me coming. You realize this is exactly what he wants, Marcus said, matching my stride. He's counting on you being emotional, making mistakes. He has my sister, and a team of corporate spies backing him. The police are 15 minutes out. We should wait. You don't have to come. His hand caught my arm. That's not what I meant. The keycard I'd stolen from Ethan's desk months ago still worked. The door clicked open, releasing stale air and memories. This was where we'd first met, where he'd charmed his way into my life with that perfect smile and carefully crafted backstory. Inside, emergency lights cast sickly shadows. Our footsteps echoed through empty corridors until a familiar voice cut through the darkness. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize my own wife's perfume? Ethan's voice came through the PA system, distorted but unmistakable. 3rd floor, honey, just like our first date, remember? Marcus reached for his phone. I stopped him. No signal, he's jamming it. Layla. The concern in his voice made me pause. What aren't you telling me? Before I could answer, a scream pierced the silence. Lily. We ran toward the stairs, but the sound of a door slamming stopped us. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of movement in the parking lot. He's playing us, Marcus realized. Splitting us up. Another scream, closer this time. Marcus hesitated, torn between following me and checking the parking lot. Go, I said. I know where he's keeping her. The 3rd floor laboratory still smelled of chemicals and broken dreams. This was where our company's failed cancer drug had been developed, where millions had been lost, where Ethan had first accessed our research. Lily sat tied to a chair in the center of the room, duct tape across her mouth. Behind her, screens displayed security footage of the building, including Marcus heading toward the parking lot. The famous big sister coming to the rescue. Ethan emerged from the shadows, holding something that made my blood freeze. My old research notebook. You know what I found interesting about your early trials? The unreported side effects, the deaths you covered up. Let her go. This is between us. Is it? He flipped through the notebook. Your sister was so helpful, telling me where you kept your backup data. All those years of falsified research hidden away in a safety deposit box. Imagine the board's reaction when this leaks. Lily's muffled protest drew my attention. Her eyes weren't showing fear anymore. They were trying to tell me something. You're not the only one who can play detective, honey. Ethan's smile turned cruel. Did you really think Marcus was helping you out of the goodness of his heart? Ask him about Project Eclipse. Ask him who really authorized those failed trials. Movement behind Ethan caught my eye. A reflection in the darkened windows. Marcus, gun raised. You destroyed everything I built, I said, keeping Ethan's attention. My marriage, my career, my family. No, sweetheart, you did that yourself. I just exposed the truth about who you really are. He moved closer, notebook extended like a peace offering. But we can still fix this. Together. Just like before. The gunshot shattered the silence. But Ethan didn't fall. Instead, Marcus crashed through the door, blood spreading across his shirt. Sorry, honey. Ethan's smile never wavered. Didn't I mention, your friend Tom's been very cooperative since we found those tax fraud records. Lily's chair toppled as she fought against her restraints. Marcus lay motionless, and something inside me, something I'd kept caged since discovering that first missing payment, finally broke free. I lunged for the notebook, but Ethan was faster. As we grappled, his phone clattered to the floor, revealing an open email. Project Eclipse termination authorized. Eliminate all witnesses. The implications hit harder than any physical blow. This wasn't just about stealing research or ruining my life. This was about silencing everyone who knew the truth. and I had just led Marcus right to him. Marcus's blood stained my hands as I pressed against his wound. Behind me, Lily had worked one hand free, but Ethan's attention was fixed on his phone, reading something that made him laugh. "You know what's funny?" He held up the screen. "Your sister just got copied on every illegal trial document you ever signed. The board, the FDA, even those grieving families. They'll all know exactly who covered up those deaths." "He's lying," Marcus gasped, his voice barely audible. "Layla, the trials weren't your fault." Ethan's smile widened. "Tell her, Marcus. Tell her who really ordered those experimental treatments, who falsified the consent forms." The laboratory lights flickered, casting strange shadows across Marcus's paling face. "I had to protect the company," he whispered, "but I never meant for anyone to die." The truth hit like physical pain. All those patients, all those families seeking answers. And I'd helped hide it. My signature on every document, trusting Marcus, trusting the system. "There it is." Ethan circled us slowly. "That moment when you realize everyone's been lying to you, even your white knight here." Lily's chair creaked as she worked at her restraints. Through the windows, distant sirens wailed. Too far away, too late. "But I'll make you a deal." Ethan set my research notebook on a nearby bench. "Give me access to Project Eclipse's complete data, and this stays buried. Your sister keeps her career. Marcus might even survive, and those families never learn the truth." "Don't," Marcus coughed, blood staining his lips. "Project Eclipse. It's not what you think." Ethan's phone chimed. He glanced at it, his composure cracking slightly. "Time's running out, honey. The board's emergency meeting starts in 20 minutes. Once those documents hit their inbox..." A crash from the hallway made us all jump. Footsteps approached, heavy, multiple sets. "That'll be my associates," Ethan said. "Less understanding than me, I'm afraid. Last chance." My hands were slick with Marcus's blood as I helped him sit up. "The access codes," he whispered. "Don't..." "Shut up." Ethan kicked him hard. "You've manipulated her enough." The footsteps grew closer. Through the laboratory's glass walls, shadows moved in the corridor. "I trusted you," I told Marcus, my voice breaking. "All those patients." "The real data," he gasped. "Safety deposit box. Explains everything." Ethan checked his watch. 10 seconds, Layla. Choose." Lily had worked the duct tape loose enough to speak. "He's bluffing," she said. "The email he showed you. Check the timestamp." I lunged for Ethan's discarded phone, but he was faster. The screen shattered as he smashed it against the floor. "Wrong choice." He nodded toward the door as 3 men in tactical gear entered. "Take care of them. Make it look like a lab accident." "Wait." I stepped forward, hands raised. "The backup server." "In the basement. I can give you everything." Ethan studied my face, searching for deception. "You're lying." "Check my keycard access logs. Why do you think I came here?" The men looked to Ethan for instructions. In that moment of hesitation, Lily's chair finally toppled. She rolled free, kicking the notebook into a puddle of spilled chemicals. The laboratory erupted into chaos. As Ethan lunged for the notebook, I grabbed for his phone's remains. Marcus slumped against me, his breathing shallow. "Kill them all," Ethan ordered, but his voice held a new edge. Desperation. The tactical team raised their weapons. Through the broken phone screen, I saw the email timestamp Lily had noticed. It was dated next week. "He's using you," I told them. "Project Eclipse isn't what he promised." "Shoot them," Ethan screamed. But the men hesitated, looking at each other. In their moment of uncertainty, distant voices echoed through the building. Police, finally arriving. Ethan pulled out a gun. "Fine, I'll do it myself." The shot echoed like thunder. Marcus slumped in my arms, no longer breathing. Lily screamed. And something inside me, the last trace of the woman who had once loved this monster, died with Marcus. I looked up at my husband, seeing him clearly for the first time. "You want to know about Project Eclipse? Follow me." As I led them toward the basement, Ethan's gun pressed against my back. I realized there was no going back. Whatever happened next would destroy us all. And maybe that was exactly what we deserved. The basement's emergency lights cast everything in blood-red shadows. Ethan's gun pressed between my shoulder blades as we descended, his mercenaries flanking us. Above, police sirens grew louder, but we all knew they'd be too late. "The server room's through here," I said, swiping my keycard. Nothing happened. I tried again. "Stop stalling." Ethan's voice had lost its smooth charm, revealing something rawer beneath. "You really think I didn't disable your access? Then shoot me." I turned to face him. "Because that's the only way you're getting what you want." His laugh echoed off concrete walls. Always so dramatic, like when you threatened to expose the trial deaths. "But you didn't, did you? Because deep down, you're just like me." A door slammed somewhere above us. The mercenaries exchanged glances. "Sir," one said, "we need to move." Ethan pulled out his phone, showing me the screen. A video feed of the upstairs lab. Lily still there, now with a guard standing over her. "Last chance, honey. The real Project Eclipse data, or your sister joins Marcus." I took a step closer, close enough to smell his cologne, the same scent I'd once found so intoxicating. "You want to know the truth about Project Eclipse?" His eyes narrowed. "The backup server doesn't exist." I smiled, feeling something cold and final settle in my chest. "But the safety deposit box does. The one Marcus mentioned. I visited it this morning." The first flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Behind him, one of the mercenaries touched his earpiece, listening to something. "You were so focused on the trial data," I continued. "You never asked why Marcus kept protecting me. Why he really hired me all those years ago." "Sir," the mercenary interrupted, "we've got movement on multiple floors." "Shut up!" Ethan's composure cracked further. "What are you talking about?" Project Eclipse wasn't about the drug trials. It was about identifying corporate spies. Like the ones who killed Marcus's wife 5 years ago. The ones you're working for. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by fear. "You're lying." "Check your phone again. That video feed of Lily. It's a loop from 20 minutes ago." He glanced down. In that moment, I moved. The gun went off, the shot deafening in the confined space. But I was already rolling, my hand finding the emergency alarm panel Marcus had shown me months ago. The sprinklers activated, but instead of water, chemical foam poured down. The mercenaries' equipment sparked and died. "Clear." Sophie's voice echoed from the stairwell as she led a tactical team in. The real one, the one Marcus had arranged before everything went wrong. Ethan lunged for me, but slipped in the foam. His gun clattered away. "You don't understand," he gasped. "They'll kill me." "Like you killed Marcus? Like you killed those other wives?" He reached for something in his jacket. I didn't hesitate. The syringe I'd palmed from the upstairs lab found his neck, just like he'd planned for me. "What?" His eyes widened as recognition hit. "The trial drug. A dose large enough to show every side effect you helped cover up." I watched him slump against the wall. "Don't worry. You'll live. Long enough to experience everything those patients did." The tactical team secured the mercenaries. Sophie appeared beside me, helping me up. "Lily's safe. The real Project Eclipse data is already with the FBI. And the board meeting, streaming live. They've seen everything, including Ethan's real identity and his connection to the corporate espionage ring." I looked down at my husband, the man I'd loved, the monster I'd married. He stared back, his handsome features already showing the first signs of the drug's effects. "You were right," I told him softly. "I am just like you. The difference is, I chose justice over revenge." As they led him away, his screams echoing through the basement, I felt no satisfaction. Only a hollow emptiness where love had once lived. Sophie touched my arm. "Marcus left something for you, in case things went wrong." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a single note. Project Eclipse was never about the data. It was about finding someone strong enough to finish what my wife started. Thank you. The sirens grew closer as we climbed the stairs, leaving the basement and its secrets behind. But the echoes of what happened there would haunt us all forever. Some vengeance, I realized, comes not from what we do to others, but from what we force them to face in themselves. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me as I approached Ethan's room. Through the observation window, I watched him thrash against his restraints, his once handsome face contorted by the drug's effects, the same effects he'd helped hide from those trial patients. Dr. Simmons stood beside me, reviewing his charts. The symptoms will persist for months, every one of them documented now, impossible to deny. And the others? I asked. His previous wives? 2 have been found alive, in witness protection. She hesitated. The 3rd? I turned away from the window. I don't want to know. The click of heels announced Sophie's arrival. The board just finished reviewing Marcus's complete files. Everything about Project Eclipse, the corporate espionage ring, even records of his wife's murder. He'd documented it all. He knew, I said softly, from the moment Ethan started working there, and he chose you to finish it. Sophie handed me a USB drive. This was in his safety deposit box, along with a letter for you. Through the window, Ethan's eyes found mine. For a moment, I saw a flash of the man I'd loved, or thought I'd loved. Then his face twisted in another spasm of pain. The FBI wants your statement, Sophie continued, about the trial cover-ups. I'll give them everything. I pocketed the drive without looking at it. The patients' families deserve to know the truth. A commotion down the hall drew our attention. Lily appeared, accompanied by 2 federal agents. They found Tom, she said. He's agreed to testify about Ethan's network. I watched my sister, noting how she held herself differently now, stronger, more assured. We all carried scars from this, but maybe they'd made us harder to break. Mrs. Harrison, a nurse approached. He's asking for you. Inside the room, the restraints creaked as Ethan struggled to sit up. Come to enjoy the show? His voice was raspy, barely recognizable. No. I stayed by the door. I came to return something. I placed our wedding ring on his bedside table. He stared at it, then laughed, a horrible broken sound. Still so righteous. But we both know the truth. You enjoyed it, didn't you? Watching me suffer? That makes you just like... No, I cut him off. It makes me nothing like you, because I'm walking away. His laughter stopped. They'll never believe you about the trials. You signed off on them too. Maybe, but unlike you, I can live with the consequences of my choices. As I turned to leave, he called out, I did love you, you know, in my way. I paused at the door. That's the difference between justice and revenge, Ethan. Justice doesn't care if you loved me. Outside, Lily and Sophie waited. Behind them, through the hospital windows, the sun was setting over the city. Marcus's letter burned in my pocket, still unopened. What now? Lily asked. I watched a young couple pass by, their hands intertwined, faces bright with trust and possibility. Once, that had been me, but the woman I was then died in that basement, alongside the lies she'd built her life around. Now, I said, we tell the truth, all of it. My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Simmons. Found something in Ethan's original medical records. We need to talk. I deleted it without reading further. Some truths could wait. Some secrets deserved to stay buried, at least for now. You're not going to look at the drive, are you? Sophie asked as we walked away. Marcus knew what he was doing, I replied. Whatever's on it, that's tomorrow's battle. The hospital doors slid open, releasing us into the evening air. Somewhere in the city, federal agents were unraveling Ethan's network. Families were finally learning the truth about their loved ones' deaths. And in a quiet cemetery, Marcus's wife's case was being reopened. Justice, I'd learned, wasn't a single act of revenge. It was a chain of consequences, each link forged by our choices, our secrets, our lies. And sometimes, the hardest part wasn't achieving it, but living with what it revealed about ourselves. I felt the weight of Marcus's letter, the mystery of the drive, the unread message from Dr. Simmons, tomorrow's battles, tomorrow's truths. For now, this was enough. Walking away, letting the echoes of vengeance fade into something quieter, something that felt almost like peace. Almost.
Still messing around with that app thing? My father asked, barely glancing up from his newspaper. The question hung in the air over our Sunday dinner table, weighted with familiar disappointment. I pushed the green beans around my plate, swallowing the defensive response that rose to my throat. 29 years old, and family dinners still reduced me to feeling like a teenager. It's not just an app, Dad. It's a comprehensive wellness platform, I said quietly, reaching for my water glass. We've doubled our user base in the last quarter. That's nice, honey, my mother chimed in with that particular tone, the one that meant she wasn't really listening. Did I tell you that Richard's son just made partner at his law firm? Only 32. They're celebrating with a trip to Bali. My brother Alex smirked across the table. Meanwhile, Ellie's celebrating another round of trying to convince people to pay for something they could do for free. It's not. I started, but my father cut me off. Elena, we're just concerned. It's been 3 years since you left your perfectly good job at Martin & Shaw. 3 years of, he gestured vaguely in my direction, this startup fantasy. Your apartment is tiny, you're driving that same old car. And for what? Some app that tracks people's feelings? Synapse doesn't just track feelings, I said, feeling my cheeks heat up. It's an AI-driven mental wellness platform that helps people recognize patterns in their emotional health and provides personalized resources. We're working with 3 major corporate clients now. And, oh sweetheart, my mother interrupted, reaching over to pat my hand. Wouldn't it be easier to just go back to marketing? Judith says her company is always looking for experienced people, and the benefits are wonderful. I pulled my hand away. I don't want to go back to marketing, Mom. I'm building something important. My father sighed heavily. Elena, at some point, you need to face reality. You're approaching 30. This is the time to build a career, not play entrepreneur. Who's playing? I muttered, but no one was listening anymore. The conversation had already shifted to Alex's recent promotion at the investment bank, where he'd worked since graduation, a proper career path in my family's eyes. I excused myself early, citing work to finish. It wasn't a lie. There was always work to do when you were bootstrapping a company with minimal outside funding. As I drove back to my apartment, I replayed the dinner conversation in my mind, a familiar heaviness settling in my chest. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia, my co-founder and best friend since college. How was the family inquisition? Same as always, I typed back. Dad thinks I'm wasting my life. Mom thinks I need benefits. Alex thinks I'm a joke. 3 dots appeared immediately. And you? I smiled despite myself. I think we need to nail this health first pitch on Tuesday. That's my girl. See you at the office tomorrow. 8 a.m. sharp. We've got this. I arrived at our office, a converted industrial space we shared with 3 other startups, at 7:15 the next morning. The quiet before everyone arrived was my favorite time to work, when I could focus without interruptions. Our space wasn't much. A cluster of desks, a small conference room we built ourselves with reclaimed wood and glass, and a kitchenette area. But to me, it represented everything: freedom, possibility, purpose. I opened my laptop and dived into the presentation for Health First, one of the largest healthcare providers in the region. If we landed this contract, it would transform our company overnight. Mia arrived at 7:45, balancing 2 coffee cups and her ever-present tablet. At 30, she was only a year older than me, but carried herself with a confidence I sometimes envied. She'd walked away from a promising engineering career at Google to join me in this venture, something my family couldn't fathom. You're early, she observed, sliding a coffee onto my desk. Couldn't sleep. I've been refining the ROI projections for the pitch. I rubbed my eyes. If we can demonstrate a 15% reduction in employee burnout through our platform, their savings would be substantial. Mia peered over my shoulder at the spreadsheet. These numbers are compelling. Add in the reduced healthcare utilization data from our pilot, and they'd be crazy not to sign with us. By 9:30, our small team had begun to arrive. We were 11 people in total now, 4 developers, 2 UX designers, a data scientist, a content creator, a business development rep, Mia, and me. Each person had taken a risk to join us, believing in our vision when most considered it a long shot. Morning team meeting in 5, I called out, watching as they settled at their desks. We'll keep it quick today, lots to do before Tuesday. The meeting was focused and energetic, everyone reporting their progress and plans for the day. Despite the pressure of the upcoming pitch, there was laughter, collaboration, and a palpable sense of shared purpose. It struck me, as it often did, how different this felt from my years in corporate marketing, where meetings had been exercises in politics and self-preservation. Ellie, got a minute? It was Raj, our lead developer, catching me as the meeting dispersed. I followed him to his desk, where he showed me a new feature he'd been working on. A predictive module that could identify potential mental health challenges before users themselves recognized the warning signs. This is incredible, Raj, I said, genuinely impressed. Is it ready to demo? I can have it polished by tomorrow. Should we include it in the Health First pitch? I considered it. The feature was exactly what could set us apart from competitors. But including untested functionality was risky. Let's do it, I decided. But let's be transparent that it's in final development. They'll appreciate the innovation and the honesty. Raj nodded, already turning back to his screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. By late afternoon, I was deep in pitch preparations when my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail but sighed and answered. Hi, Mom. Elena, honey, I've been thinking about our conversation at dinner, she began, her voice taking on that concerned tone I knew all too well. I ran into Catherine Miller at the grocery store. Her daughter works in HR at Bristow & Associates, and they have an opening in their marketing department. I could put in a word. Mom, I interrupted, pinching the bridge of my nose. I appreciate the thought, but I'm not looking for a marketing job. I'm running a company. I understand you're doing this app thing for now, but it's always good to have options. You were so good at marketing, Elena. You had such a bright future. I bit back my frustration. I still have a bright future, Mom. Just not the one you imagined for me. I just worry about your security, your retirement, your healthcare. I have to go, Mom. We have a major pitch on Tuesday that could change everything for us. I cut her off as gently as I could. I'll call you later this week, okay? After hanging up, I sat staring at my phone, a familiar mix of guilt and resentment churning inside me. Why couldn't they understand? Why couldn't they even try to see what I was building? Family? Maya asked, appearing at my desk with a knowing look. How'd you guess? I smiled weakly. Your my parents don't understand me face is pretty distinctive after all these years. She sat on the edge of my desk. What was it this time? Another job lead? Concern about your biological clock. Questions about your 401 key. Job lead, I confirmed. Apparently, I was so good at marketing. You were also miserable, Mia pointed out. Remember when you had to create that campaign for that weight loss pill that was basically just laxatives? You cried in the bathroom for an hour. I laughed despite myself. God, that was awful. And now you're building something that actually helps people. That matters. She stood up. Come on, the team's ordering dinner. We're all staying late to prep for Tuesday. As we walked toward the others, I felt that familiar surge of gratitude for this found family who believed in our vision. Whatever my parents thought, these people got it. They understood what we were trying to build. Tuesday arrived with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The Health First pitch represented our biggest opportunity yet, a chance to implement our platform across their entire system of hospitals and clinics, reaching thousands of healthcare workers struggling with burnout and mental health challenges. I dressed carefully in my one good suit, a navy blue number I'd bought back in my corporate days. My apartment was indeed small, as my father had pointed out, a one-bedroom in a not particularly trendy neighborhood, but it was all I needed. Most of my savings had gone into Synapse, a fact my family found incomprehensible. Mia picked me up at 8:30, her usual confident self in a crisp white shirt and charcoal pants. Ready to change the future of mental health support, she asked as I slid into the passenger seat. Born ready, I replied, though my stomach was doing somersaults. The presentation went better than we could have hoped. The predictive feature Raj had developed generated exactly the excitement we'd anticipated, and our ROI projections sparked intense interest from Health First's CFO. Your platform addresses precisely the challenges we've been struggling to solve, their chief medical officer said as we concluded. The personalization, the preventative approach, the ease of implementation. It's impressive. We'd like to move forward, their CEO announced much earlier in the meeting than we'd expected such a decision. Let's have our teams work on the details, but consider this a green light. Mia and I maintained our professional composure until we reached the parking garage, then dissolved into squeals and hugs like teenagers. We did it. Mia kept saying, "Do you know what this means? This changes everything." And it did. The Health First contract was worth $1.2 million annually, with a 3-year commitment. It would allow us to hire the additional team members we desperately needed, improve our infrastructure, and give us the stability to pursue other major clients. "We need to celebrate," Mia declared as we drove back to the office. "Team dinner tonight. Somewhere nice." When we arrived back at our office space, the entire team was waiting. One look at our faces told them everything they needed to know, and the room erupted in cheers. "Drinks on me tonight," I announced. "We're celebrating at Emilio's at 7. Every single one of you made this happen." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of congratulatory messages, planning discussions, and an impromptu champagne toast, using paper cups in the office. Throughout it all, I kept thinking about calling my family, sharing this massive validation of everything they'd dismissed. But something held me back. That evening, surrounded by my team at Emilio's, the nicest restaurant many of us could afford even for special occasions, I watched as they celebrated, their faces alight with pride and excitement. These people had believed in Synapse when it was just an idea. They'd taken risks, worked ridiculous hours, and poured their talents into building something meaningful. Speech. Someone called out, and suddenly everyone was tapping their glasses. I stood feeling a surge of emotion as I looked at each face. 3 years ago, I left a job that looked good on paper but left me feeling empty. I had this idea that technology could do more than just track our steps or count our calories, that it could help people understand their emotional health and get support when they needed it most. I paused, thinking about those early days. Most people thought it was a pipe dream, a hobby, something I'd eventually give up on when reality hit. My family's faces flashed in my mind. But not you. You saw what I saw, a chance to create something that matters. I raised my glass. Today's win isn't just about a contract, it's about validation. It's proof that we're solving a real problem that affects real people. So this toast isn't to Health First, it's to all of you who believed when belief was a scarce commodity. Thank you for making Synapse not just my dream, but ours. As glasses clinked and conversations resumed, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my brother. "Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything awk with your app thing." I stared at the message, considering how to respond. In that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need their validation anymore. This victory, this moment belonged to the people who'd been part of the journey, who'd understood the vision without requiring proof. I slipped my phone back into my pocket without responding. Tomorrow would be time enough for family communications. Tonight was for celebrating with the people who'd earned the right to be part of this milestone. 6 months after the Health First contract, Synapse had transformed. We'd moved to a larger office, doubled our team to 22 people, and signed 3 more major clients. Our platform was now supporting over 35,000 users, and the data showed we were making a real difference in how people understood and managed their mental health. I just finished a call with a potential investor when my assistant Tara appeared at my door. "Your parents are here," she said, looking slightly uncomfortable. "They don't have an appointment, but—" I froze. My parents? Here. In the 3.5 years since starting Synapse, they'd never once visited the office. "It's fine," I assured her. "You can send them in." Moments later, my mother and father stood awkwardly in my office doorway, taking in the space with wide eyes. My mother clutched her purse tightly, while my father seemed unusually hesitant. "Mom, Dad," I greeted them, coming around my desk. "This is a surprise. What brings you here?" "We were downtown for lunch," my mother explained, "and your father suggested we stop by. We've never seen your workplace." I gestured for them to sit in the visitor chairs. "Well, welcome to Synapse." They settled into the chairs, looking around at my office. It wasn't especially large or luxurious, but it was mine, the CEO's office, with glass walls that allowed me to see the bustling workspace beyond, where my team was building something important. It's not what I expected, my father admitted, his eyes landing on the awards we'd recently won for innovation in healthcare technology, prominently displayed on a shelf. What did you expect? I asked, genuinely curious. He shrugged. I don't know. Something smaller, less professional? I suggested. He had the grace to look embarrassed. I suppose so, yes. An awkward silence fell. I could have filled it, could have told them about our recent successes, our growing client lists, our impressive user metrics. But something in me held back. Why was the burden always on me to justify my choices? Finally, my mother spoke. We saw an article, Helena. In the business journal, she fumbled in her purse and produced a slightly crumpled magazine. About you, about Synapse. I recognized it, a feature that had run the previous month profiling emerging health tech companies in the region. We'd been the cover story. Why didn't you tell us? My father asked, and I was surprised to hear hurt in his voice. About any of this. The article says you've raised $5 million in funding, that you're projected to hit $10 million in revenue next year. I leaned back in my chair, considering my response carefully. Every Sunday dinner for 3 years, you asked me when I was going to get a real job. When I tried to tell you about what I was building, we changed the subject or suggested career alternatives. I met their eyes directly. After a while, it seemed easier not to share. You'd made up your minds about Synapse, that it was a hobby, a phase, a waste of time. We were worried about you, my mother insisted. You left such a promising career. For what? I finished for her. For this. I gestured to the space around us, to the team visible through the glass walls. For a company that's helping thousands of people understand their mental health. For work that matters to me. My father cleared his throat. The article says you've been approached about acquisition offers. We have, I confirmed. We've turned them down. His eyebrows shot up. But we're not done yet, I said simply. There's still so much we want to build, so many people we want to help. Another silence fell, this one heavier than the last. I owe you an apology, my father finally said, the words sounding like they cost him considerable effort. I didn't understand what you were doing. I didn't try to understand. We both owe you an apology, my mother added, reaching for my hand across the desk. We were so focused on what we thought success should look like that we couldn't see you were creating your own definition. I felt a lump form in my throat. Thank you for saying that. Would you, my father hesitated. Would you show us around? Help us understand what you've built here. For the next hour, I gave them a tour of our office, introducing them to my team, explaining our platform, showing them user testimonials and data visualizations that demonstrated our impact. They asked questions, real questions, for the first time, and actually listened to my answers. Your brother's coming for dinner tonight, my mother mentioned as they prepared to leave. Would you join us? I'd like to hear more about your plans for the company. I hesitated, years of Sunday dinner disappointments making me wary. No job suggestions, my father promised, a small smile playing at his corners of his mouth. No concerned looks. Just a chance to catch up. I'd like that, I agreed, surprised to find I meant it. After they left, Mia appeared in my doorway. So those were the infamous parents, she observed. They seemed different than I expected from your stories. They were different today, I said, still processing the visit. It's amazing what a little external validation can do. That's often how it works, Mia said wisely. People need to see others valuing what you do before they can value it themselves. But hey, she grinned. Better late than never, right? I nodded, turning to look out my window at the city below. You know what's funny? 3 years ago, their approval seemed so important. I wanted it so badly it hurt, and now? Now, Mia prompted. Now it's nice to have. But I don't need it anymore. I turned back to her. Somewhere along the way, I stopped measuring success by their standards. That evening, as I drove to my parents' house for dinner, I reflected on the journey of the past few years. The doubt, the long hours, the financial stress, the victories both small and large. There had been moments when even I questioned whether I was on the right path, when the challenges seemed insurmountable. But I persisted, surrounding myself with people who believed in the vision, who weren't afraid to build something new. and now Synapse was making a real difference in thousands of lives. My phone buzzed with a notification from our user feedback dashboard. This app helped me recognize my anxiety triggers for the first time. I finally got the courage to talk to my doctor. "Thank you for creating this." I smiled as I pulled into my parents' driveway. That message represented true success, not the funding rounds, not the revenue projections, not even the long-delayed parental approval. Success was creating something that mattered. Everything else was just noise. "There she is," my brother called as I walked through the door. "The tech mogul graces us with her presence." I laughed, accepting his hug. "Hardly a mogul." "Not yet," he conceded with a grin. "But the Business Journal seems to think you're on your way." As we moved to the dining room, I noticed something different. The familiar weight of disapproval was absent, replaced by something that felt almost like respect. "So," my father said as we settled around the table, "tell us about what's next for Synapse." And I did. For the first time at that table, I spoke freely about my vision, my challenges, my plans for growth. And for the first time, they truly listened. Some people need to see success to believe in it. Others recognize potential and nurture it from the beginning. I was fortunate enough to find the latter in my team, in Mia, in the clients who took a chance on us early on. And now, belatedly, I was finding it in my family too. Better late than never, indeed. Your services are no longer required. Please clear out your desk by noon. The words struck me like a physical blow as I stood in front of Mr. Gregory Reed, the newly appointed CEO of Meridian Manufacturing. I had just finished presenting our quarterly financial report, which showed a 15% increase in profitability under my financial stewardship. "I don't understand," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. "The company is performing exceptionally well. What exactly is the issue with my work?" "This isn't about your performance, Michael," Reed replied dismissively. "We're implementing a new organizational structure, and your position has been deemed redundant. Your severance details are in this envelope." He slid a manila envelope across his immaculate glass desk without making eye contact. The morning sun filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office seemed to mock the darkness that had suddenly enveloped my professional life. "My name is Michael Donovan. For the past 12 years, I had served as Chief Financial Officer at Meridian Manufacturing, a family-owned business that produced specialized industrial equipment. The company had been founded by Harold Meridian 40 years ago and had grown steadily under the leadership of the Meridian family, until 3 months ago, that is when Harold's son-in-law, Gregory Reed, had taken over as CEO. The transition had been unexpected. Harold's daughter, Vanessa Meridian, had been groomed for leadership since joining the company after completing her MBA. She had worked in every department, learning the business from the ground up, and had been serving effectively as COO for the past 5 years. Everyone, including Harold, had expected her to take over when he retired. But then Gregory Reed entered the picture. He had married Vanessa's younger sister, Elaine, 2 years ago. With a background in private equity and a Harvard Business School pedigree, Reed had quickly ingratiated himself with Harold, offering advice on modernizing the company's approach to finance and operations. "The severance package includes 3 months' salary and benefits," Reed continued, checking his watch impatiently. "HR will assist with the transition. We've already brought in a financial consultant from my previous firm to handle your responsibilities in the interim." I stared at him, struggling to process what was happening. "Today is the 15th, I said. "We have vendor payments scheduled, the quarterly tax filing due, and a meeting with our banking partners about the expansion financing." "The consultant is familiar with all those matters," Reed replied dismissively. "We've been transitioning information for the past 2 weeks. Behind my back. For 2 weeks. The realization that this had been planned well in advance, that my termination had been orchestrated, while I continued to work diligently for the company's benefit, sent a wave of cold anger through me. I'll need to properly hand over my files and brief whoever is taking over," I insisted, my professional instincts overriding my personal distress. "That won't be necessary. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings, and your access to all company systems has already been revoked." As if on cue, the door opened and Meridian's head of security, a man named Denton who I had always had a friendly relationship with, entered the office. His uncomfortable expression told me he found the situation as distasteful as I did. "Mr. Reed, Vanessa Meridian is asking to speak with you urgently," Denton said, pointedly not looking in my direction. "Tell her I'm in a meeting," Reed replied irritably. "She's quite insistent, sir. She says it's about the Westbrook contract." Reed's expression tightened. The Westbrook contract was our largest account, one that I had personally helped secure through careful financial structuring that benefited both parties. "Fine," he snapped. "Escort Mr. Donovan out first, then tell her I'll be available in 10 minutes. Denton finally met my eyes, apology written across his features. "This way, Michael." As we walked through the executive floor toward my office, Denton spoke quietly. "This isn't right, Michael. Everyone knows it." "What's happening here, Frank?" I asked equally quietly. "Where's Harold in all this?" "Harold's been in poor health. He's essentially retired from day-to-day operations." Reed convinced the board that Meridian needed a more aggressive growth strategy and positioned himself as the person to deliver it. And Vanessa, outmaneuvered, at least temporarily. Reed brought in 3 new board members from his network before making his move. We reached my office, where I found 2 cardboard boxes already waiting. My computer was shut down, and several drawers in my filing cabinet stood open, their contents obviously rifled through. "They've already been through my things?" I asked, incredulous. Denton looked even more uncomfortable. "Reed's consultant and the IT director were in here last night. I'm sorry, Michael. This whole situation stinks." I packed quickly, taking only personal items, family photos, a few books, the fountain pen Harold had given me on my 10-year anniversary with the company. As I worked, my mind raced, considering the implications of what was happening and what I should do next. "Frank," I said as I finished, "tell Vanessa I'd be happy to talk if she wants to reach out. My personal cell is still the same." He nodded, taking one of the boxes while I carried the other. "I'll let her know." At the lobby security desk, I surrendered my company ID and parking pass. The receptionist, Marta, who had been with Meridian almost as long as I had, looked close to tears. "This isn't right, Mr. Donovan," she whispered. "Everyone's talking about it." "Thanks, Marta," I replied gently. "Take care of yourself." The drive home was a blur. My wife, Karen, wasn't expecting me. She was at the hospital where she worked as a pediatric surgeon. Our 2 teenagers were at school. The empty house seemed to amplify the sudden silence in my professional life. I placed the boxes in my home office and sat heavily in my chair, finally opening the severance envelope. The terms were as Reed had stated: 3 months' salary and benefits, a non-disparagement clause, and a request to sign a document acknowledging my termination was not due to performance issues. My phone rang, startling me, an unknown number. "Michael Donovan speaking," I answered professionally, force of habit. "Michael, it's Vanessa Meridian." Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "I just heard what happened. Can we meet?" "Of course," I replied, surprised but relieved to hear from her. "When and where?" "There's a coffee shop called Redwood on 4th Street. Can you be there in an hour?" "I'll be there." Exactly 60 minutes later, I found myself sitting across from Vanessa Meridian in a quiet corner of the independent coffee shop. At 42, Vanessa had inherited her father's sharp business acumen and her mother's grace under pressure. Today, however, the strain was evident in the tightness around her eyes. "First, I want to apologize," she began after we'd exchanged brief greetings. "What happened to you today was unconscionable, and it happened without my knowledge or consent." "I appreciate that," I replied. "But I get the sense there's more going on than my termination." Vanessa nodded grimly. "Gregory is systematically removing everyone loyal to my father and replacing them with his own people. 4 department heads have been restructured in the past month. You're the highest-ranking executive to go so far." "Why?" "The company is profitable, well-managed." "Because Gregory doesn't want to run my father's company," she interrupted. "He wants to strip it, sell off the valuable parts, and absorb the cash into his own ventures." I sat back stunned. "That would destroy everything your father built." "Exactly. And my father is too ill to see what's happening. Gregory has isolated him, controls who visits, what information he receives." "What about the board?" 3 of the 7 members are Gregory's former colleagues. 2 others are easily manipulated. Only my father's oldest friend, Arthur Jenkins, and I stand opposed, but we're outvoted. And Elaine, your sister? Vanessa's expression clouded. Elaine believes everything Gregory tells her. She thinks he's saving the company from outdated management practices. So what's your next move? I asked. That's partly why I wanted to meet with you, Vanessa said, leaning forward. I need your help, Michael. Gregory may have control of the board, but there's something he doesn't know. Which is, my father structured the company's articles of incorporation with a special provision. If the company attempts to sell more than 25% of its assets within a 5-year period, it triggers a supermajority voting requirement. 75% of shareholders must approve. I nodded, remembering the provision. I had helped Harold implement it years ago as protection against hostile takeovers. The Meridian Family Trust holds 65% of the shares. Vanessa continued. Most people, including Gregory, assume my father controls all those shares as trustee. But that's not the case. The trust is divided, I realized, recalling the complex structure we had created. Harold, you and Elaine each control a portion. Exactly. My father controls 25%, I control 25%, and Elaine controls 15%. The remaining 35% is divided among long-term employees and a few outside investors. So even if Gregory convinces Elaine and the outside investors to support asset sales, he still needs your approval or your father's to reach the 75% threshold. I concluded. Yes, but here's where things get complicated. My father's health is deteriorating. If he becomes incapacitated, his voting rights pass to a designated proxy, who used to be my mother until she passed away last year. My father never updated the proxy designation. So in case of his incapacity, his 25% effectively becomes deadlocked, I realized. No one can vote those shares, which still prevents Gregory from reaching 75%. But it's a precarious situation, Vanessa confirmed. What I need is documented evidence of Gregory's intentions. If I can prove to the board that he's planning to dismantle the company rather than grow it, I might be able to persuade some of them to reconsider their support. And you think I can help find this evidence? I know you keep meticulous records, Michael. In the months since Gregory arrived, have you seen anything suspicious? Unusual requests for financial information, meetings with potential buyers for divisions of the company? I thought carefully, mentally reviewing the past 3 months. He did request comprehensive valuation reports for each business unit, ostensibly for strategic planning. And there were several conference calls he conducted from his office with parties he never identified. That's helpful, but not definitive, Vanessa said, disappointment evident in her voice. However, I continued, 2 weeks ago, he asked me to prepare a detailed analysis of the tax implications of selling our R&D division and manufacturing facilities while retaining the intellectual property and outsourcing production. I have copies of that analysis on my personal drive because I was working on it at home. Vanessa's eyes widened. That's exactly what I need. It shows he's exploring structural changes that would fundamentally alter the company's operations without disclosing those plans to the board. I'll send you the files this afternoon, I promised. But Vanessa, you should know, Reed mentioned bringing in a financial consultant from his previous firm. They've already begun transitioning my responsibilities. Jonathan Fielding, Vanessa supplied. Former colleague of Gregory's from Avalon Partners, the same private equity firm that was recently investigated for asset stripping 3 manufacturing companies in the Midwest. That's concerning. It gets worse. I've learned that Fielding has been reviewing our customer contracts, particularly the Westbrook account. I believe Gregory intends to renegotiate our major contracts to improve short-term profitability at the expense of long-term relationships. The Westbrook contract, that explained Reed's reaction when Denton mentioned it earlier. The Westbrook terms are carefully balanced, I said. Any attempt to squeeze more profit from them would damage a relationship we've spent years building. Exactly. And Westbrook accounts for nearly 30% of our revenue. We spent the next hour formulating a strategy. By the time we parted, I had agreed to compile all the potentially relevant information from my records and to reach out discreetly to certain long-term employees who held smaller equity stakes in the company. 3 days later, I received an unexpected visitor at my home. I was in my office, organizing the financial documentation Vanessa had requested, when the doorbell rang. Opening the front door, I found Harold Meridian himself standing on my porch, supported by a cane and accompanied by a home health aide who waited respectfully a few steps behind. "Harold," I said, genuinely shocked to see him. "Please come in." "Thank you, Michael," he replied, his voice weaker than I remembered, but his eyes still sharp. I apologized for arriving unannounced, but certain conversations shouldn't happen over the phone. I helped him to the living room sofa, offered refreshments which he declined, and sat across from him, waiting. "I understand my son-in-law terminated your employment," Harold began directly, without consulting me or providing a reasonable explanation. "That's correct," I confirmed, seeing no benefit in sugarcoating the situation. "Vanessa has been to see me," he continued. She shared her concerns about Gregory's intentions for Meridian. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Gregory has been so attentive, so insistent that his only concern is modernizing the company for growth. Harold paused, looking down at his hands, once strong and capable, now thin and slightly trembling. "But I've built businesses for 40 years, Michael. I know the difference between growth strategies and extraction strategies. What Gregory describes as unlocking value sounds remarkably like dismantling everything I've built. I've compiled some information that supports those concerns," I said, gesturing toward my office. "Financial analysis that Gregory requested specifically examining how to separate and sell company assets." Vanessa mentioned that. "I'd like to see those documents," Harold said firmly. "But first, I need to ask you something important. If we manage to remove Gregory from his position, would you be willing to return to Meridian? Not just as CFO, but in an expanded role working directly with Vanessa to stabilize the company." The question caught me by surprise. Despite the abrupt and humiliating way I'd been terminated, I had never stopped caring about Meridian Manufacturing, its employees, and its legacy. "I would," I answered honestly. "I've always believed in what Meridian stands for: quality, integrity, and genuine partnership with both employees and customers. That's worth fighting for." Harold nodded, satisfaction visible in his expression. "Good. Now let's review those documents. We have a shareholders meeting to prepare for." The next week was a flurry of discrete activity. Harold, despite his diminished physical strength, demonstrated that his strategic mind remained formidable. He authorized me to contact Arthur Jenkins and other potential allies on the board. Vanessa worked with the company's original legal counsel, who had been sidelined but not yet replaced by Gregory, to prepare the necessary resolutions for the shareholders' meeting. Most delicate was the situation with Elaine. After much discussion, Harold decided to speak with his younger daughter personally, without Gregory present. The conversation apparently lasted hours and involved painful truths about Gregory's business history that Harold's private investigator had uncovered, information that had been deliberately kept from Elaine. By the time the emergency shareholders meeting convened, we had secured commitments from enough stakeholders to constitute more than 80% of the voting shares, including, crucially, Elaine's 15%, which she had agreed to vote according to her father's recommendation after learning the full extent of her husband's plans. I wasn't present for the actual meeting, but Vanessa called me immediately afterward. "It's done," she said, her voice showing relief and exhaustion in equal measure. "Gregory has been removed as CEO by unanimous board vote. Arthur Jenkins will serve as interim CEO until a permanent replacement is appointed." "How did Gregory take it?" I asked. "Not well," Vanessa replied, a hint of grim satisfaction in her tone. "He threatened lawsuits, claimed breach of contract, the usual. But once our legal counsel presented evidence that he had been exploring sale options without board approval and in violation of his fiduciary duty, he became much quieter. A separation agreement is being drafted now, generous enough to avoid litigation, but with ironclad provisions preventing him from any future involvement with Meridian or its clients. And Elaine," Vanessa sighed, "that's the most painful part. She's filed for separation and moved back to our father's house temporarily. She feels deeply betrayed, by Gregory, of course, but also somewhat by us for not helping her see his true character sooner." "I'm sorry," I said sincerely. "Family businesses always intertwine the professional and the personal. That's both their strength and their vulnerability." "Yes," Vanessa agreed. "But speaking of family business, my father and the board would like to meet with you tomorrow morning at 10. Can you make it?" "Of course." The following morning, I arrived at Meridian Manufacturing 15 minutes early, feeling a strange mixture of apprehension and hope. Marta greeted me at the reception desk with a warm smile and a visitor badge, a somewhat ironic formality given my 12 years with the company. "Everyone's so happy you're here, Mr. Donovan," she said quietly. "Things haven't been right since you left." "Thank you, Marta. It's good to see you too." Frank Denton appeared to escort me to the boardroom, shaking my hand firmly. "Welcome back, Michael, or at least, hopefully welcome back." The boardroom contained the full board of directors, including Harold, who sat at the head of the table, looking more energized than he had at my home the previous week. Vanessa sat to his right, with Arthur Jenkins to his left. The remaining board members, including those who had previously supported Gregory, showed varying degrees of discomfort and respect as I entered. "Michael," Harold began once I was seated, "thank you for coming. The events of the past week have made it clear that Meridian needs to return to the principles and leadership style that built its success. The board has unanimously approved a restructuring of our executive team." He gestured to Vanessa, who continued seamlessly. "We would like to offer you the position of Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, reporting directly to me as the new Chief Executive Officer. This represents an expansion of your previous responsibilities to include strategic planning and operational oversight in partnership with the CEO. Arthur Jenkins, a man of few words, added, "Your loyalty to this company, even after being unjustly removed from it, speaks volumes about your character, Michael. The board is unanimous in its desire to have you return in this enhanced capacity." I looked around the table, knowing the nodding heads of even those board members who had supported Gregory's ascension. Perhaps they were simply aligning themselves with a new power structure, but their approval seemed genuine. "I'm honored by your confidence," I replied. "Before I accept, however, I'd like to understand the board's vision for Meridian's future. The past few months have revealed vulnerabilities in our governance and succession planning that should be addressed to prevent similar situations from arising again." Harold smiled, the familiar expression of approval I'd seen whenever I asked necessary but difficult questions during my tenure. "An excellent point," he acknowledged. "Vanessa, would you outline the governance changes we discussed?" For the next half hour, Vanessa detailed a comprehensive plan to strengthen Meridian's corporate governance, including expanding the board with independent directors, implementing more robust succession planning, and creating additional checks and balances on executive authority. Additionally, she concluded, "We're establishing a stock ownership program that will increase employee equity participation over the next 5 years. We believe that broader ownership will strengthen commitment to the company's long-term success and make it more difficult for any individual to gain disproportionate influence." The plan addressed virtually all the concerns I would have raised. It balanced family control with professional management, created appropriate oversight mechanisms, and aligned everyone's interests with the company's sustainable growth. In that case, I said I would be proud to accept the position and help implement this vision. The relief and approval around the table was palpable. As the meeting concluded and board members offered their congratulations, Harold asked me to stay behind. Once we were alone with Vanessa, he spoke with the directness that had always characterized his leadership. "When I brought Gregory into this company, I made a serious error in judgment," he admitted. "I allowed personal considerations, my desire to see both my daughters happily settled in the family business, to override the careful evaluation I would have applied to any other executive candidate." "Dad, you couldn't have known," Vanessa began. "I could have and should have," Harold interrupted gently. "The signs were there. His history of short-term positions, the vagueness about his accomplishments, his rapid shift from courting Elaine to courting me for a position in the company. I chose not to see them because I wanted to believe the best of the man my daughter had married." He turned to me. "Michael, one of the most valuable traits in a business leader is the ability to acknowledge mistakes and learn from them. I've made a significant one, and the company nearly paid the price. I'm grateful that you and Vanessa had the courage and foresight to prevent that outcome. We all want what's best for Meridian," I replied simply. "Indeed, and now, with the right leadership team in place, I can focus on my health with greater peace of mind." The transition back into Meridian was remarkably smooth. My former team welcomed me enthusiastically, and even those executives who had been brought in during Gregory's brief tenure seemed relieved by the return to more transparent and collaborative leadership. Within 6 months, the company had not only stabilized but begun implementing the strategic growth initiatives that Vanessa and I had developed together. Our emphasis on innovation, quality, and strong customer relationships proved to be exactly what the market was seeking in an increasingly commoditized industry. As for Gregory Reed, he left the city shortly after his removal, reportedly taking a position with a private equity firm on the West Coast. Elaine eventually filed for divorce and, after some time away, returned to Meridian in a role managing our newly established charitable foundation. Perhaps the most significant change came a year after the shareholders' meeting that had altered Meridian's trajectory. Harold, whose health had improved with reduced stress and proper treatment, called Vanessa and me to his home one evening. "I've been thinking about the future," he said as we sat in his study. "Not just Meridian's future, but my own." He handed each of us a document, the updated trust agreement governing the Meridian family shares. "I've restructured the trust," he explained. "Upon my eventual passing, my 25% ownership will be divided. 10% will go to the Employee Ownership Fund. 5% will be held in trust for Elaine. The remaining 10% will be divided equally between you, Vanessa, and you, Michael." I looked up stunned. "Harold, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," he replied with a smile. "You've demonstrated something I've always believed but rarely found, that family businesses need both family and non-family leaders who care deeply about their legacy. You've earned your place in Meridian's future, not through marriage or birth, but through dedication and principle." Vanessa reached over and squeezed my hand. "I couldn't agree more, Dad. Michael has been part of the Meridian family in every way that matters." 3 years have passed since that conversation. Harold still serves as chairman of the board, though his day-to-day involvement has naturally decreased with age. Vanessa has proven to be an exceptional CEO, balancing innovation with the core values that made Meridian successful. And in my role as executive vice president, I found fulfillment in helping to guide the company's financial strategy while mentoring the next generation of leaders. The crisis precipitated by Gregory Reed's brief tenure taught us all valuable lessons about governance, succession, and the delicate balance between family and business interests. But perhaps the most important lesson was more personal. Sometimes losing your position can ultimately lead to finding your place. As Harold often says now when recounting the story to new employees, the true measure of a company isn't whether it avoids mistakes, but how it responds to them. And the true measure of leadership isn't authority, but accountability. Words to build a business by, and to live by as well. Since Michael and Sarah returned for a hometown childbirth, "Please leave," my mother-in-law stated in a chilly voice. Her eldest son and his wife are due in 3 days. "Me? Leave?" I asked, confused and stunned. "Yes. We don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while now. Michael and his family will be living here, so make sure you're out by tomorrow," she continued. I knew I was never truly accepted into the family since the day I got married. Treated as a wife, never did I imagine they would tell me to leave. "You barren failure. You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too." What's Simon to do? I gulped down my saliva. If it's not a conspiracy between my mother-in-law and Michael, then I don't need to stand on ceremony with my husband anymore. Foolish to drive me out, but it was my mother-in-law who ignited this. What happens to this house now is none of my concern. May they face the reality they have ignored squarely. Personally, I'm Anna Thompson, 45 years old, living with my husband and mother-in-law in a popular area close to the station. The access to the city center is superb. When house hunting, my picky husband, recently promoted to a managerial position, insisted on a spacious apartment. The rent was steep, but the space and rooms made it worth the stretch. My husband Simon, 8 years my senior, a divorce that I met through a friend's introduction. Comforted by the enveloping kindness unique to an older man, we decided to get married after 2 years of dating. Even when I told him about my infertility due to past illness, his affection did not waver. Likewise, my feelings remained unchanged when I learned of the circumstances he carried. My husband had a son named Michael from his previous marriage. I'm truly sorry to ask you, who have never been married, to live with my parents and son. I won't make you suffer. I'll ensure you're happy. That was the promise he made to me. To prevent me from feeling suffocated, my husband suggested moving to a spacious apartment where I could have my own room. Michael, turning 10 this year, won't need much care with my mom around. You don't have to push yourself. After his divorce, my husband got help with childcare from his parents at their home. A few years later, Simon's father passed away in an accident, and it seems his mother took over as Michael's caretaker. From the first meeting, Michael wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I thought it might be his shy nature, approaching a difficult age, so I didn't worry. As long as they accepted me as a member of the household, I was content. My mother-in-law was a quiet and refined person. When I visited to formally introduce myself after our engagement, she treated me with such politeness that I thought we would get along fine living together. I'll continue to prepare the meals as I have been. Simon comes home late, so it's okay if we eat at different times, right? Anna, I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you, all right? Let's work well together. After getting married, I switched from a full-time employee at the pharmacy to a part-timer due to the division of household chores. I started work a bit later in the morning, so I wouldn't get home until nearly 8 p.m. Dinner was always ready when I arrived, making me feel good about living together. My mother-in-law and Michael usually had dinner before I got home, so I was always eating alone. Even after getting married, I sometimes felt a sense of, is this it? But I came to accept that this was our family style. From the beginning, my mother-in-law never really liked me and didn't consider me part of the family at all. Michael, the school's activity day is before summer, right? When is it? We're all going to see you sometime. After getting married, I tried to break the ice with Michael, who still hadn't warmed up to me. No, as Michael faltered, my mother-in-law interjected. We'll go there, just Simon and me. Anna, you don't need to worry about it. I misunderstood her words, thinking she was just being considerate. I can get the day off work. Let's all go together. You don't need that. You're Simon's wife, and Mike's family has always been just Simon and me. I was quite shocked. When I brought it up with my husband at night, he said, Mom's been clinging to Michael. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her. Eventually, I began to join as a mother at the activity day, but Michael and I rarely spent any time together outside of school events. Sometimes I could tell Michael wanted to say something, but my mother-in-law always cut in between us. I later found out that she had been bad-mouthing me to Michael. Anna said she could be happy with Simon if Michael weren't around. She's a terrible person. Dad must be deceived by her too. If a boy in his formative years hears such things, it wouldn't be strange for him to distrust me. It was a sickening story. But at that time, I hadn't imagined that my mother-in-law could do such a thing. After graduating high school, Michael immediately moved in with his girlfriend and left home. As soon as he started college, a year after he started working, he married her without a ceremony. Once Michael moved out, my mother-in-law surprisingly stopped doing housework altogether. Instead, it seemed that picking on me had become her sole entertainment. She stopped cooking, which she used to do before, and now just sits at the dining table waiting for me to come home. Without a moment to sit down, I would stand in the kitchen and prepare dinner. You're really inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night. I was never good at cooking, partly because I had always relied on my mother-in-law to prepare the meals. Whenever I did manage to cook, she would taste each dish and invariably complain, "This tastes awful." I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Anna. It's a good thing Michael never had to eat this. How terrible. If she thought so, she might as well make it herself. But it seemed she just wanted to complain to me, not just about the meals, but she started nitpicking everything from the cleaning I never used to do to the laundry. Why are there so many wrinkles on the laundry? You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right. Didn't your family teach you anything? With that, my mother-in-law sighed while looking at me. Being belittled even about my family, I clenched my fists in frustration. I don't know how you won over Simon, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman. And she always concluded with the same line. If you hadn't come, Michael would have never left. I understood that there was a gaping hole in her heart since Michael had left. Maybe it was what they call empty nest syndrome. If taking it out on me made her feel better, that's what I told myself to endure it. But her bullying took on new energy after a certain event. That event was the pregnancy announcement for Michael's wife, Sarah. The joy my mother-in-law exhibited was unlike anything I had seen before. It's Michael's baby. It's bound to be adorable. He'll be my first grandchild. Watching the two of them rejoice, I was happy too, but my mother-in-law's excitement was beyond normal. Probably because Michael asked her, "Grandma, can Sarah have our baby at your place?" Sarah's family home is an hour away by plane, and since they have no one else to rely on here, they turn to us for help. Of course, my mother-in-law wouldn't dream of turning down Michael's request. The phone calls from Michael started to become frequent, and her excitement went through the roof. The next day after getting the news, she started preparing enthusiastically, from cleaning out Michael's room to preparing the bedding and making a list of baby items. It was like she had great-grandchild fever. Naturally, I had to get involved too when I returned from work. "Anna, I vacuumed Michael's room, so you need to wipe the floors and the windows and please wax them too. This weekend we're going to the department store to look at baby cribs." Cleaning and waxing at night was tough, especially after a long day at work. If I even thought about cutting corners, I'd be told to do it over again. Moreover, my mother-in-law started asking for money, and before I knew it, the house was overflowing with baby stuff. "Anna, I need you to withdraw some money tomorrow. There are things I want to get ready for the baby." Again, isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Sarah and Michael haven't even arrived? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them? I had wanted to meet my mother-in-law's requests, but I was troubled by the relentless spending. How can you be so cold? It's Simon's grandchild. Oh, that's right, you're not related to Michael by blood. You don't care, do you? That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Sarah might want to pick things out herself. When do you want to choose things for your own child? Perhaps because I was making a valid point, my mother-in-law glared at me sharply. I immediately thought I had gone too far, but it was too late. Without a word, my mother-in-law went back to her room, looking upset. I did reflect on it, but I was also shocked to be spoken about in such a way regarding my infertility. The next morning, my mother-in-law didn't come out of her room, perhaps still angry. Simon had a 3-day business trip starting that day, so he just called out, "I'm leaving," through her door. Please don't throw cold water on Mom's great-grandchild fever. She hasn't been the same since Michael left. You were worried too, right? I was, but if we spend all our money like this, we'll have nothing left when Michael and Sarah arrive, right? Simon's face immediately turned sour. Are you saying my earnings are too low? That's not what I'm saying at all. Simon just said, "Fine," and left with a look of dissatisfaction. Discussions about money always end up like this. Since I'm the one managing our finances, I can't help but think ahead. Of course, there's a reason for that. We've been married for 13 years. Simon has provided me with a very comfortable life. Your part-time income is for you to enjoy, Simon had always told me, so I saved everything beyond what I needed for myself. Even though it's in my name, I consider it our shared property. But then Simon's company's performance declined, and over the last 5 years, his salary has dropped to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married. While there's uncertainty whether his company will last until his retirement, he doesn't seem to consider changing jobs. For appearances in front of my mother-in-law, my husband couldn't give up his title as a department head. Now I'm the one paying the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We've kept this from my mother-in-law to save my husband's face. That day, I left work a bit early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I got home, she was already sitting at the dining table waiting for me. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I may have gone too far," I admitted, but my mother-in-law remained silent. Instead, she blindsided me with unexpected news. "Michael and Sarah are returning for a hometown childbirth. Please vacate," my mother-in-law declared in a chilly tone. The eldest son and his wife were set to arrive in 3 days. Perplexed and stunned, I asked, "I have to leave?" She affirmed, "Yes. We don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while. Michael and his family will be living here. Make sure you're out by tomorrow." The realization hit me hard. I had never truly been accepted into the family since the day I got married. I had always been treated as an outsider. The news of Michael's return for the birth made it clear. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law continued. "You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too. Maybe he's getting along well with a new girlfriend by now." Shocked, I gulped down my saliva, contemplating the possibility of my relationship with my husband growing distant. Could this be a trap I fell into? Thinking my husband would never. I remembered that up until a year ago, he never had overnight business trips. "All right, I'll be out tonight. I said, grabbing my bag and leaving the house to walk aimlessly. I needed to calm my severely shaken heart. Worried about my husband, I tried calling his cell phone. Despite my mother-in-law's words, I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer no matter how many times I rang. I dialed his office, only to learn that he had taken a couple of days off. My mother-in-law's words began to ring more true. Could he really be on a trip with another woman? Dark thoughts crowded my mind, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. Staggering along, I noticed the tavern behind the station, a place we used to frequent when we first moved here. It's still here, I thought as I entered. Welcome. The tavern owner's expression clouded briefly upon seeing me, then he nodded in recognition. Hey, long time no see. It's been about 8 years. I used to come here a lot with my husband, I said. Yes, it's been a while. I remember you, he replied. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of relief. Can I get a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please? I asked. The owner, a man of few words as always, nodded. As I sipped the cold beer and savored the grilled chicken, I took out my cell phone, and the screensaver lit up with a photo of us when Michael turned 18, looking sharp in the slim suit we had picked up together. I wished for us to be closer as a family. The beer washed down my throat, taking the day's stress with it. Could I really move out tomorrow? Contemplating the next steps, I searched for moving companies, finding one for the job the next day. I also looked up junk buyers and saved 2 companies in my favorites. Changing the screensaver on my phone seemed to clear my head completely. The beer and grilled chicken tasted exceptional. I decided to think about everything once I got home. Walking away from the tavern, I was called from behind. A young waitress from the tavern was running towards me. Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson? I noticed the screensaver on your phone, she said, confirming my identity. She dropped a bombshell. My husband was having an affair with one of their employees. We exchanged contact information, and she promised to keep me informed. My mother-in-law's words appeared to be true. Instead of sadness, a fierce anger welled up within me. It was time to confront this head-on. Booking an appointment with a moving company, I resolved to move out that day. If it wasn't a conspiracy and my mother-in-law and Michael were truly involved, then I no longer needed to honor my husband. Returning home, I packed my belongings until midnight without hesitation. The moving company arrived on time, and I made it clear that I was leaving as requested. They took everything I had bought, erasing every trace of my presence. My mother-in-law panicked, but I was resolute. I'm taking everything I bought. You can start a completely new life tomorrow, I declared, suppressing a laugh. Ignoring her protests, I proceeded to have everything taken out. My mother-in-law complained loudly to the movers, but there was nothing she could do. The only items left in the house were piles of baby gear and her old dresser from before the marriage. Well then, I bid you farewell. There should be no trace of me left, so enjoy your life with Simon, Michael, and his family, I declared, leaving her sitting there stunned. Placing the keys on the table, I exited the room. The movers held onto my things for a while, and I decided to stay with a single colleague for some time. Feeling a sense of completion, I slept soundly that night. A week later, I finally heard from my husband. I wondered if he was scheming with that other woman. While my husband was dragging his feet, I received a call from the young woman at the tavern. Got a good shot, so I'll send it to you. In the photo, my husband was chatting up a not-so-young woman at the tavern. Maybe out of a sense of justice, the young woman must have followed them after they closed. There was also a photo attached of the 2 entering a hotel. Even in such times, the cheating continues, I thought, and any last bit of affection I had for my husband dissipated. I asked for the woman's name and had her address looked up. The next day, armed with all the evidence of the affair, my husband called. Anna, where are you? Michael and his family are here too. Aren't you going to come home soon? No, I'm not coming back. Your mom told me to leave. I'm done here. Michael and his family are going to live with you now, right? I knew it. Michael and his family were out of money and looking to crash at our place. I heard that after graduating from a vocational school, they'd been hopping from job to job, and now they're working part-time. No, I want you back, Anna. I went to the pharmacy, and they said you're off for a bit. Got played to crash, yeah. I'm fine, so don't worry about me. Your mom and Michael didn't like me, right? I reckon they're happy to have the place to themselves without me around. My snide comment left my husband speechless. He knew his mother and Michael never accepted me as family, but pretended not to see it. Well, all right, I have something to say, so I'll come back there once, my husband replied with a relieved please in his voice. Days later, I returned to the house for the first time in a long while. Some new pieces of furniture and appliances were inside. When Michael and Sarah saw me, they just nodded from their seats on the sofa without getting up. As I took a seat, my mother-in-law glared at me with a scary look on her face. The atmosphere was tense, and just as I thought to get things done and leave quickly, Michael spoke up. "What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you and you've had it easy." I sighed. "I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to remove all traces of me just as you wanted, right? That's crazy, right? There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy," my husband said. When I glanced at him, he started talking as if he'd resigned himself. "We've been getting by on what Anna and I both make for a little while now. Then the stuff you took should be both yours." Instead of my speechless husband, I decided to speak up. "Simon's company has been doing poorly and his salary plummeted. That's why, for the past 5 years, I've been covering what's missing. But that wasn't enough, and now I'm the one paying our rent." My mother-in-law looked at my husband with surprise. "I'm not just a part-timer. I'm a part-time pharmacist and the pay is quite good. I'm making more than Simon now." At my words, my husband awkwardly looked away. My mother-in-law's eyes were frantically shifting between my husband and me. "From now on, Michael, you'll be paying the rent. You're going to live here, right? After all the help your grandma's given, it's time for you to take care of her." Michael looked at me with a shocked expression when I dropped the news. "Suddenly rent? How much is it?" he asked. "It's $5,600. Good luck. Since it seems my role as a mother is over, I don't have an obligation to take care of you anymore. Pull yourself together. You're going to be a father soon." Michael murmured with a shake of his head, "That's impossible." It was Sarah who raised her voice upon hearing this. "Wait, $5,600? Weren't we supposed to live here for free? Covering rent and living expenses?" I almost burst out laughing. "Don't worry, Sarah. You can move to a cheaper place. Simon still makes a decent salary." Hearing this, Sarah's face relaxed a bit. "Oh, since I'll be leaving you, Simon, life might still get tough with your mistress, huh?" At that, Sarah finally broke down in tears. It was my husband who panicked. What are you talking about?" Sarah replied, "Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I guess it's time to end my role as a wife too. My husband must think there's no evidence. Indeed, it hasn't even been 10 days since I left the house. Wouldn't that hurt Mary if she heard you? Well, I'll get in touch about that later." At the mention of Mary's name, my husband jolted, realizing that I knew everything. He held his head and sighed. "This is not the atmosphere to write a divorce paper. Well then, I'll be going now. Please talk to me further through a lawyer." Neither my husband Simon nor Michael said anything more, staying silent as I grabbed my bag and stood up. My mother-in-law stood up simultaneously, slamming her hands on the table. She yelled with a voice too strong for an elderly woman. "What the hell? It's all your fault. Our home is in shambles." I was instantly irritated. "It was you who told me to leave. It was you who said Simon had another woman and you interfered with my relationship with Michael. Everything was you." I felt a surge of heat in my chest. I regretted not being more assertive with my relationship with Michael, not holding back because of my mother-in-law. "Michael has nothing to do with this. It's time for you to step up, Simon. He's going through a hard time. You should support him as his wife. Take responsibility as a family member." What is she even talking about? If she hadn't called Michael back home, if she hadn't hinted at Simon's affair, I would still happily support Simon and this home. I had always believed in and supported Simon. "Where are you, Michael? Why are you still up there? It's all her fault." My mother-in-law's lips tightened into a line, and she was trembling. I slipped past the silent mother-in-law and quickly left the room. Afterward, Simon agreed to the divorce rather easily. It seems my determination was strong, and he couldn't counter the evidence of the affair. Shortly after, it seemed like they started the process of moving out of the apartment. In the end, Michael and Sarah went back to their apartment and never lived with the mother-in-law. Simon seems to be considering remarriage, but Mary was furious over the alimony and his request for her to live with his mother. I've heard they're considering whether to place my mother-in-law in a care facility. After all the love she poured into her son and grandson, it's somewhat sad to think they're ready to abandon her now. Perhaps she served her purpose too. If my mother-in-law had said nothing back then, and it had just been a simple trip home for childbirth, maybe we would still be living together. After the divorce, Michael sent me an apology letter. He wrote about how, as a child, he really wanted to be more spoiled, how he couldn't talk to me because his grandmother disliked it, and how happy he was when I attended school events. Maybe I should have reached out more. Perhaps then we could have built a different relationship. Even though our relationship has ended, I quietly pray for Michael's happiness in life. I've returned to work as a pharmacist and quickly rented an apartment close to my workplace. I don't feel good about keeping the furniture and appliances I took with me, so I had them all picked up and disposed of by a junk removal service. Life without my mother-in-law's harassment is peaceful and comfortable. For a while, I want to live for my own happiness, not someone else's. About the $3 million, I've made a decision to divide it between my mom and me. This decision came shortly after my father's funeral. Jack, after perusing the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy. Oh, finally I can quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man." Doddering old man. Are you talking about my dad? I inadvertently blurted out. Disregarding my confusion, Jack and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to buy a new car and go shopping. Faced with this unexpected turn of events, I could no longer contain my emotions. I was on the brink of exploding, burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. I didn't want to live with Jack and my mother-in-law anymore. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please. I am Kelly Cohan, a 38-year-old housewife working alongside my husband. My parents were doctors who ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Although my parents were disappointed I didn't become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother unexpectedly died in an accident, leaving me and my father devastated. During those difficult times, Jack, then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Jack proposed. Jack was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry. Despite earning significantly more, I believed we could overcome any difficulty and be a happy couple. My father was overjoyed when I told him about our engagement. "I've heard how Jack supported you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said. Facing my father, Jack stood straight and promised, "I will make her happy." Standing next to Jack, I was enveloped in feelings of happiness. The following week, we went to Jack's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, with flashy makeup and divorced from Jack's father, evaluated me rudely. "Marriage, huh? You're Jack's choice, are you? Isn't she a bit plain for your choice? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" Jack quickly retorted, "Mom, you know N Pharmaceuticals, right? Kelly works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his practice." I expected Jack to praise my character, but instead he emphasized the financial advantages. Hearing this, his mother's expression changed to one of satisfaction. "Oh, Jack, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Kelly." "Thank you." After gaining approval for our marriage from Jack's mother, Jack was overjoyed. However, I couldn't shake off a sense of unease despite things going smoothly and our decision to get married. When we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, gifted me an apartment in a luxury building in New York City. I told Jack, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Jack smiled happily, and thus our married life began. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Jack, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use a washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to throw it away. While I wanted to diligently share household responsibilities, Jack's careless attitude increased my dissatisfaction. In the first year of marriage, I took on all the household responsibilities despite some complaints, given that we were still in the honeymoon phase. But with the exhaustion from work and struggling to keep up with chores, I reached my limit in our second year, deciding to have a serious talk with Jack about sharing household duties. I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction. To my dismay, Jack responded without gratitude or reflection, saying, "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." Dismissed just like that, Jack hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the only problem. After marrying Jack, I discovered his mother also had some peculiar ideas. Jack wasn't very interested in seasonal events, so I decided to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite choosing a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me, sounding displeased. She criticized the scarf, saying it wasn't from a famous brand and was absurd to send such a no-name item. I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen, insisting she wanted items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned, I reported this to Jack when he returned home. But instead of empathizing, he said, "What? It's just a scarf. Just do as she said." Jack didn't take my side, and from then on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 5th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Jack, without any complaints, would always smile and give money to his mother. Even though I had a job, Jack's income was limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation led me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Jack cherished his mother, and she was an important person to me, having supported me during tough times. She's the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Kelly, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I questioned, "Dad, why, even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Jack I would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," was the only thing Jack said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. I was so preoccupied with my father's care that I had no time to spare for Jack. If I had time to worry about Jack, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked me, "Kelly, how is your marriage with Jack going?" Caught off guard, I found myself thinking about Jack's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, my father seemed to understand and spoke to me. "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." I couldn't hold back my tears and wept, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly. Engulfed in immense sorrow, I started arranging the funeral. Jack, however, showed no interest in my grief and didn't help with any preparations. Despite this, I was too busy with the funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Jack. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell. Even the indifferent Jack and his mother attended. The day after the funeral, I received a call from a lawyer about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting with the lawyer and listened to the explanation. The information was all new and quite surprising. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor, but also made real estate investments, leaving behind such a vast fortune, all of it to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I proceeded with the inheritance process. After returning home, I spread out the documents received from a lawyer on my desk. Reading through them, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a short while. When I awoke, I heard the cheerful voices of Jack and his mother from afar. Huh? Jack and mother too. When did you come? As I spoke, Jack approached me with a beaming smile, saying, Yes, Kelly, well done. Huh? Why? What? Confused by his sudden excitement, I noticed the documents in Jack's hand. They were the inheritance papers I had received from the lawyer. Wait, don't just read those without asking. Shocked and angry at Jack for looking through the documents without permission, I raised my voice at him. However, my mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, Wow, an inheritance of $3 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives. Confused, I couldn't understand why my mother-in-law suddenly said that. Then Jack turned serious and continued, By the way, about this $3 million, I decided that it will be split between me and my mom. It was right after my father's funeral. Jack, having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, said to me, Kelly, don't be too greedy. Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man. Doddering old man? Are you talking about my dad? I accidentally said it out loud. Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible. Ignoring my confusion over the sudden turn of events, Jack and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding, being burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. While holding back my anger, I replied with a forced smile, Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law please. As you wish. Hearing this, my mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, said cheerfully, That's the spirit, Kelly. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard. I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. Afterward, Jack and my mother-in-law began living as if they had lost their minds, consuming money lavishly. Jack quickly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house constantly. They would leave in the morning, returning with luxury brand items they had splurged on. The 3-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected. Yes, it was a bit underwhelming for us sophisticated ones. They had conversations as if they had become wealthy celebrities while dumping all the housework on me as if I were a maid. Jack seemed to think my father's inheritance would come through immediately. He carelessly withdrew money from our joint account, and my savings of $100,000 dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Jack just laughed it off. Huh? What are you talking about? Isn't $3 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal. I warned him, I've already stopped it, but Jack completely ignored me. Then, a month later, Jack and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Hawaii. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door. Wondering what was happening, I glanced at the intercom monitor and saw Jack and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. What do you want? I asked calmly and coldly. With anger, Jack yelled, What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Seeing Jack and my mother-in-law confused as to why the door wouldn't open, I confidently answered through the intercom, Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open. What? Why? Let's talk over this calmly at the nearby cafe. Please go ahead, I'll join you shortly, I suggested. Jack and his mother, after shouting in front of the entrance, seemingly realized it was futile and soon headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving there, I saw Jack and his mother, who had arrived earlier, waiting in a state of fury. Hey, what's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly told Jack and his mother. Facing a visibly angry Jack, I presented a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother was equally shocked and bewildered. Kelly, why has it come to this? I spoke quietly to the two who were panicking and flustered. By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? What? Money? Of course it's fine. Jack retorted vehemently, spitting as he spoke. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Here it is. Saying this, Jack took out his smartphone and opened the banking app to check the account. At that moment, his expression changed abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day. Hearing Jack's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. Of course it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division. What? What do you mean? Jack's face turned to anger for a moment, but then he smirked as if remembering something. Fine, I'll divorce you, then transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? Well, you might be misunderstanding something, I replied. Why? Didn't you know? The inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division. There was a moment of silence between us. Then Jack and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was just astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. No, that can't be true. That's impossible. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. Please check for yourself, I said mockingly. Jack started frantically searching on his smartphone. It says here, property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses. What? Seriously? His mother too looked at the screen in shock. Then Jack approached me, pleading desperately, Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me? Faced with Jack's wailing, I spoke to him clearly and firmly. What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to. Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, which they had never seen before, Jack and his mother shrunk back in fear, whimpering softly. Leaving the two of them dejected, I walked out of the cafe. Later on, Jack and I were able to go through the divorce proceedings without any issues. The $50,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to get Jack and his mother out of my house. Jack, having already squandered the money from the property division, found himself penniless. Furthermore, he was overwhelmed with bills from the overseas trip and other expenses he had paid for with his credit card, quickly sinking into debt. Jack and his mother had to take on even more debt to make these payments, and they now live in a rundown apartment, working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. The stark contrast to their former lavish lifestyle has been a huge shock for them. On the other hand, I sold the condo I used to share with Jack. I then moved into the apartment that used to belong to my father. I continue to work as before, but with the inheritance I received from my father, I am living a comfortable life financially. With gratitude to my late father in my heart, I want to start anew and cherish my life ahead. I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully.